I constantly get asked the tools and tips and tricks that millionaires are using. And one tool that I highly recommend, and it's recommended by millionaires too, is something that will help you run your payroll. And I know it's like, it's so annoying to have to do payroll. Well, now you can do it in typically around 11 minutes with Gusto. They're actually simple, easy. They'll file and pay your taxes for you. Your W-2s will all be done and you don't have to worry about it. How amazing would that be? Plus, they have an HR expert on call. So you can call them and be able to get your HR questions answered. Plus, they have benefits like 401k and health benefits for any budget. And I know I get asked that question all the time. So go check it out. We've actually partnered with them. And so when you run your first payroll through them, they'll give you 3 months free. Just go to gusto.com/EM and check it out for yourself. Today, we're doing something a little different. So I'm not interviewing a millionaire for today's show. In fact, who I'm talking to is someone that's a regular business owner. So not necessarily someone that's just trying to get more publicity at the moment. They're looking for coaching from me. So they're a 6-figure business owner, ideally, hopefully similarly to your type of business. And I'm going to be telling them exactly what to do. Since I've been a business coach for 10 years, I've over 5,000 hours of one-on-one coaching time. We're peeling back that curtain. I want to show you the stuff that I actually tell clients so that way you can take those nuggets and use them in your business too. This is also in beta. So please, we want to hear your feedback, what you think, what you liked, what you didn't like, how we can improve. That way we can make this show an amazing resource that you have to listen to. I don't want to waste your time in any way. I want you to be like, give me more, please. So let us know how we can serve you best. Take care.
Potent advice and inspiration from real self-made millionaires. Welcome to The Eventual Millionaire with your host, Jaime Masters.
Welcome to Eventual Millionaire. This is a new show, the Laser Coaching Show. I told you a little bit about this beforehand, but I want to welcome Jody Mabry on the show. You can check him out at jodymabry.com. We were taking the sweat away because the nervousness of how this is beforehand. He doesn't know what he's in for, and I so appreciate you doing this. Thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Oh, Jamie, I'm so excited. Thanks for having me. You are the best.
You say that even before we even get started? Yes, this is perfect.
Well, I decided to say it now. I may not feel that way when we're done.
Exactly, smart man. And he's like, I don't know what I'm getting in for, but I so appreciate you being game because it is a vulnerable kind of thing. So let's talk about your business first. So tell us your site, tell us what you actually do, what you sell, all that fun stuff.
All right. The site is simple, jodymayberry.com. And my focus on the site mainly is podcasting because that's what I've become known for. It's not all that I do, but I decided at some point, well, I have to put one thing out there. And I chose to go with podcasting because I have 8 active podcasts right now, 2 of which are my own, and the rest I do for other people or other businesses. So podcasting is a really big piece of what I do, which is interesting because I never meant for that to happen, but sometimes you just go with what shows up. But I also do copywriting and coaching and consulting and helping people find the right words or stories to get out there. I was a park ranger for 8 years, and park rangers tell stories, and we love to tell stories. And so I have adapted that piece of being a park ranger into helping other people. So that is a big piece of what I do, whether it's on podcast or behind the scenes. And I help a lot of people, former executives usually, that have had a wonderful career and now they want to build a personal brand, and they partner up with me and we get that sort of thing going. So I do a lot of wonderful behind the scenes work, a sidekick, a number 2, whatever you want to call it. But it's fun to help people that have done wonderful work and have a message and help them get it out to the right people. So that another big piece of what I do. And then kind of on the side, this is a very small piece, but a fun piece. Since I do podcasting and use my voice so much, I do some audio work too, which is a really small piece of what I do, but narrating audio books. I've had people have me narrate white papers for them, things like that. So that's been kind of fun too.
You do have an awesome voice for that. And it's so funny. When you're a little kid, you're not like, one day, because I'm assuming you had park ranger goals, right? One day I'm going to be a podcaster talking about this stuff, right? So what I
Yeah.
what I want to do today is I want to take you from where you are now. The universe brought you here, right? And then go and predict the future for you as best as humanly possible, right? Because I know you have goals and you have subsets of everything you want to do. We're going to untangle the pieces. And you and I have chatted a little bit. I made you, annoyingly enough, time track for a very long period of time. So I know exactly what you're doing with your time, how much time of it, and we're going to go over all those pieces in just a second. But I want to clarify a little bit, a couple things. So your goal this year is about 250,000, right?
That's right. Yep.
Awesome. And your avatar, you were saying, is more of the CEO or executive types that are looking to have a personal brand. Is that the core avatar that we're working with?
Yeah, that's what I've had the most success with, and it just comes from who I've worked with in the past, makes it attractive for other people to say, "Oh, you've worked with him. Well, I want to work with you too."
Well, we want to level up on the things that are already working, right? So in general, it's like, hey, we could go over here and try and shoot that, but hey, if there's a deer right there, not that we shoot deer because we're park rangers, but you know what I mean, right? So then the goal, when we're selling something like that to one of those people, what is the typical package that you're selling them?
Well, it could be anything from just helping them understand what to package together in a podcast. So if that's what they're going to do, maybe it's other branding stuff. So it could be anywhere from that, which would be some coaching sessions, a little consulting, to bigger items. Like there are a few people that I work very closely with, very intimately with, that we do a lot of work together. Podcasts, I'll do their lead magnet, I do their copywriting, all of that, because I've got to know them so well that I'm in their head or they're in my head, whichever way you look at that. So those are fewer because there's only so many people I can do that for. So it goes anywhere from just helping somebody unscramble. You told me you were helping me untangle. That's also kind of what I do. Unscramble this career that they've had, and what do we put forward now that I'm moving on to the next thing. So there's little pieces to that or big pieces.
I love this because it's so easy for me to see, be like, okay, you are now reinventing the wheel every single time that you're doing that though, right? So you don't have a signature program or anything like that is a typical, okay. So let's talk about this really quick because if we want to actually break down what the 250 is made of, what I would love to do is go, how many of these executives do we actually need to sell? Because one thing that I realized when I was going through all your time tracking, which I will bring up in just a minute, is that you're like an agency, but a one-man band. Now, I know you have contractors, but literally everybody's coming at you. So in order to scale, you worked 52 hours in the week that you sent me, right? So in order to actually scale, we either need to duplicate you over and over and over again, which, if we could do that, cloning would be a wonderful thing. We can work on that. Or we can do the systematic approach to this, which is making you more of like an agency model. That being said, I want to make sure and clarify that that's the goal that you want to go down. Okay. So if you were to have your dream of this next 250,000 that you're going to be making, right? And you're selling the perfect avatar that you really, really want, what is the thing that you're selling them and what is the price point?
I don't know if I have the answer I should be able to give you for that. And that's the thing. The week I sent you, I worked 52 hours and still felt like I fell behind that week.
Yep.
And
I can tell.
and that's what most weeks are like.
Yep.
And I realize, so working with you so far, just to get to where we are, I have started finding things. I'll do something and I'll say, Jamie's going to tell me not to do that. And I already send something over to Chelsea, for example, and say, Chelsea, I can't do this anymore. Can you do this? So already I've started to look at that. But ideally, what I think I would like for this to still work out and to grow, to get to my goal, I think I still need to be the face and who people interact with, because that's one thing I've realized about my business is people come to work with me because of me more than what I do. And so I still need to be the one they interact with, but I don't need to be the one that does the majority of the work. and I still am doing both.
Ding, 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 ding.
See what you
Woohoo!
taught me
Coaching
already,
session
Jason?
over. Perfect. Okay, so when I was looking through your notes, and I'm going to pull this up. So let me pull this up right now. So I reorganized your toggle, and we're going to go ahead and put this up, and everybody that's listening to can go grab how he did this. I think it's eventualmillionaire.com/speed of implementation. So what I did, and I wish I could show you my screen right now, or I probably could. Your admin work, right? Out of that 52 hours, you did about 8 hours of admin work, what I classify admin work. So email and that sort of stuff. So I took all of your information and like rejiggered it. You're doing about 25 hours of client work, right? That alone is almost all of your 40 hours for the entire week, right? And yet both of those things, you could actually have somebody else do almost all of them, except for when you're actually on camera, right? So imagine having an extra 20 something hours a week in regards to that, right? So I'm going to read through the rest of the pieces so you can actually see, because I have a couple other things to say. So learning, you had 2 hours, which is totally cool. Marketing, which I include social media and your own podcast. So client work is what you're getting paid for. The marketing side, I know you do Jody Mayberry podcast. So that was about 5 hours-ish. Plus you have that new product program, and I'll talk about that in a second. That was 7 hours worth. But in a week, you only did an hour and a half-ish of sales. And so when we actually start looking at like, how are we literally spending our time? It's really eye-opening, especially because what I consider, and you're not going to like this, a hobby is over 2 hours also, which is the Parks and Rec podcast that you have too, right? Which we talked about a little bit. And I love hobbies, don't get me wrong, but it is not indirect. It's a separate entity besides your actual business. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah. And you're like, thanks. I knew you were going to say that, Jamie. Right? But hey, if you want to keep it as a hobby, totally understand. Just know that that's 2 hours plus a week, right? Is that typically a week show?
Yes.
Okay. So that's 8 hours a month. Side note. Okay. So when we start going through that, tell me a little bit more about your team, because I know we have Chelsea, and I want to start rejiggering and doing some low-hanging fruit on what we can do in regards to that. So tell me who you have on your team, and if we can level it up, especially if you've been thinking this whole past week, hey, maybe I shouldn't be doing this piece. Can someone else on your team do it?
Well, as far as the team goes, Chelsea is the main piece. She's wonderful. She keeps me together. So Chelsea is the main piece, and we've got a graphic designer, and we've got someone that helps with web stuff, a copywriter.
Okay, cool.
Which I used to do all of that myself. It wasn't until just recently I said, I can't, I need a little help. And then after he wrote copy, I was like, oh, this is kind of nice to not do this.
Right? You're going to have a lot more of those moments coming up, by the way, but yes, continue.
So a copy editor. So just somebody that will only go through and say, hey, make these adjustments. So that's the only role that she currently does. And then somebody that does smaller projects, that a college student, and she just does smaller projects, and she's fairly
projects. Yeah. What does smaller projects mean?
So I recently had her as an example. I had this list of Disney related podcasts, and some of the people I work with and myself would be good guests for that. And I gave her the list and said, get me the contact information for all 50 people. So she does VA, projects like
research, that kind of stuff, right?
Yes.
Okay. Perfect. Okay. Anyone else?
I'm trying to think of where I was. I don't, so that
I'm good at interrupting. Watch out. I've got your team list over here too. Yeah, that's just about it. Okay.
So that's just about it.
Well, so, and I was drawing a little picture so you can actually see it, right? So that's you, right? Literally.
That is me.
You're in the middle and everybody is coming to you. So not only do you have that, you even had managing in there a little bit too. One of the biggest things that I like to do, especially in regards to this, is ask you about where you want to go. So you can't be at this level like this anymore. You either have to work more and stress out and kill yourself, or do something different, right? So you've already, especially since you talked to me the last time, you're a little like, okay, right? That being said, what the heck do you actually do? Yes, delegating is important, but it's to me, it's more than just delegating, because delegating, giving a couple people, you still have this happen. Even if you delegate more, it's going to, especially when people that haven't managed a lot before do this, it keeps bouncing back, right? And you actually get more stressed occasionally when you're delegating because we have problems letting go as entrepreneurs. Who knew, right? So what I want to do is sort of put a better foundational structure in place for your time. So you tell me about Chelsea and you say that she's an A and you absolutely love her. I know we went through some of those things before. And you told me before that she actually has more time. Did you chat with her about how much time she actually could be working for you?
Yeah, we did talk a little bit, and she said she could add a few more hours a week if that's what we needed, which I'm sure we could.
Well, so let's talk about the client work and the admin work, right? So
Mm-hmm.
if we were to go through, and I know I have some of the breakdown, but I want you to sort of bring it up on the client work side, because that's a huge chunk, 25 hours. How much of that is essential that is done by you, and how much do you think in hours wise you could actually delegate if you had the processes so they actually did it to your level of excellence?
Of those 25 hours, I'm going to guess there are, and I'm just kind of making this up because I didn't keep track of this. Let's say of the 25 hours, there's 5 hours where I needed to be recording with them. If that was podcast work, let's say in a week there was 5 hours I needed to be recording. Maybe, and this is even a stretch, maybe another 5 hours where I needed to be on the phone with them or planning with them or interacting with them.
Mm-hmm.
So even if that 5 hours might be a stretch. So we've still got 15 hours that I was doing that maybe I didn't need to be.
Yay. Okay. So do we have somebody that can actually do that? Do you have somebody like your editor and stuff like that you have, or do we need somebody new for that?
Well, I think part of it will be realizing which 15 hours I don't need to be doing.
Yep.
And then working with Chelsea to say, okay, what of this can you take and what do we need to have someone else take?
Yes. Okay. So the way that I really like to do this, so when I do my podcasts, I don't do anything. I mean, I'm here, but that's about it, right? So I will record whatever promos, I upload everything to Dropbox, and everything else happens in the background, which is magic, right? You have a thing called podcast magic. It's magic. I know you already know this, so I'm not going to go into the nitty-gritty details, but the idea is actually to raise Chelsea up a little bit. You're actually, because you're acting like an agency, but not, we can't scale it because nobody else has any responsibility. You're the guy. And everybody's supporting you, which is great, but nobody's running anything except you. So everything actually falls on your shoulders, which makes it even worse for you because then your shoulders are really heavy and you're like, I'm trying to hold it all up and I have to work 50 something hours a week and I can't make any more money because I'm working as much as I can. And your wife looks at you like, are you really working that much? Come on. Right. So when you're on this rat race, we have to sort of rejigger and shift the way things are. So what I like to do is have, as you've heard me say before, but most people haven't, an operator. We call it the owner and the operator. So Leilani is my operator, right? She actually has responsibility for stuff instead of always coming to me. Because most likely in the executive admin type role, and it can be an executive admin. I just call it operator because it makes it a little bit easier for you to understand that they are operating your business instead of just being an admin. We raise them up so that way they actually have autonomy to make decisions and help you even more, which allows you the ability to actually let go. So if we made Chelsea your actual operator, right, which means she actually could run the show a little bit more, can she actually have responsibility on things? And if so, what? Like project management wise, does she, like, you give me the feedback on what you think she could actually handle?
Well, I think there's opportunity for her to do more project management, to say, this is the project we're working on. Just let me know if you need anything, rather than usually now it's me saying, there are some things that she just handles, but for the most part, it's me saying, this is what we need to do. And then when it's done, she'll come back and say, okay, well, that's done. Where it would be nice, I realize, to just say, Chelsea, this is what we need to do. And then it's just taken care of. And I don't have to be the input and quite often the output.
Right.
So I think there's so you mentioned podcasting, you don't do anything. Currently, we have made adjustments where on most of the 8 shows, I think 4 of the 8, when they get back from the editor, I will move the file one more time, and then Chelsea does everything. But prior to that, on 8 of 8 shows, everything up until that point, I still do. And I just don't think that's sustainable anymore.
Ding, ding, ding.
So,
Yeah. I love those.
so
Uh-huh.
I do think, which I realized about 3 days ago, this has got to change. And Chelsea and I had a conversation about that. What if we set something up where I just record once, move it to Dropbox, and then you work magic? And she's like, yes, let's do it. So now we just need to set that up, which I know that happened before this call, but it happened because this call was coming, and I'm examining everything thinking, oh man, I have a feeling on some things what Jamie's going to tell me, and I better start working on it now.
This is what is so mind-blowing about having a coach. It's more or less a lot of the owners actually know what to do, and yet it's not a priority until you have someone to come to and go, whoops, right? Okay, I don't want to admit that I've been doing this for this long, so therefore I'm paying more attention. So this is my little drawing for you then afterwards. So if we actually have you more on the top level, Chelsea underneath that actually has a project management role, if she has that skill set, of course. If you don't think she does, we'd have to do something a little bit different. But if so, then all of the other contractors come to her, because one of the biggest things that's tough as an owner is getting interrupted all the time with all of these things that you were just sort of moving forward a teeny bit, because you can never have that visionary I know I had you do a 20-year out goal, right? Having that visionary side of things and this time and space to be able to do the bigger stuff, like finding sales and prospecting and going to conferences, as you said on your sheet, like that works really, really well. If you have so much to do, you can't even imagine adding more to your plate, which keeps you at the same level that you're at. Does that make sense? And so
Yes.
Action item number 1, I actually want you to go through that whole list of Toggle with Chelsea, and I want you to write the name of Chelsea next to each one of those things, or if it's a different contractor, write their names also by each one. Because the great news that you have is that you actually have a team that is solid, that you told me you're pretty much all straight A's, which is amazing. That usually doesn't happen, so go you. That being said, we can most likely give them a lot more, and you can have that low-hanging fruit. I have an extra 15 to 20 hours a week, right? That's when your wife will love me. You'll be like, oh, we actually have time, right? Because in that space, then we can actually set up the foundation of your business. At the very beginning, we were talking about signature programs and stuff like that. Those are necessary foundational steps, so you aren't reinventing the wheel every time. A business owner, a lot of times, is like, oh, I need to do this again. Oh, I need to do this again. Oh, I do, and you're like, that's the definition of insanity, doing the same thing over and over again, right? And when we have somebody else, especially somebody else that is more detail oriented, that really can run those pieces, you go, hey, I sold another person into our signature program. Great, for our $250,000 goal. Awesome. Chelsea, take the lead on this so you don't have to go, oh, I have another client, and now I have to do this, that, and the other thing. Does that make sense? You won't be able to grow. Mm-hmm. You won't even want to grow, because who wants to work more than 52 hours a week? Right now.
Yeah.
And ideally what we want you to be, because you're so good, like you said, you want to be the face, which I think is amazing. You're good at sales too. People want you. They don't actually care that you're doing the work. As I know you already know this, but I'm telling you to your face, right? And that makes a huge difference. So what I usually like to do as phase 1, the part 1, is low-hanging fruit, right? Low-hanging fruit is getting you 10 to 20 hours back. And you could do that within like 2 or 3 weeks. Assuming that Chelsea has the skill set and we can start training. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Can you imagine? Okay, so that's number 1. Okay, number 2, though, is really putting in those more foundational type pieces, because one of the tough things about having a team is making sure that you have enough cash that's predictable revenue-wise to be able to pay them. I could be like, yeah, let's have her work 40 hours, and you'll be like, right? So what we want to do is we want to have a lot more predictable recurring revenue and more of the foundational side. And it's way easier to know that when we actually know what our numbers and stuff like that are. So when I'm asking you about the packages, do you sell a lot of recurring packages typically, or are you doing more one-offs?
Most of it has been one-offs, with the exception of like helping people launch podcasts, which I haven't taken one of those on in a while anyway, just because I have been too busy to do those. But I realized when people were hiring me to help them launch a podcast, I was getting the same questions and doing the same thing over, which I was fine with. I get everybody will have the same questions, but that's what led to creating Podcast Magic, because it's a course that if you hired me to coach you to launch your podcast, this is everything I would tell you anyway. So my thought was, here, watch all of this, and then if you have questions beyond that, let's talk. So that's where that idea came from.
Which I love. And I want to go into that in just a minute too, because the one issue that I see with this, and you tell me, when we're working with CEO executives that have the money, that just want the questions answered, very different than sending them through a course. Does that make sense? So technically, and this happens a lot, it's a different avatar. The person that wants to do it all themselves, totally different price point, different mindset, different everything than your high level willing to pay somebody else, doesn't want the stress of having to figure it out. Very, very different. Does that make sense? Not saying that Podcast Magic can't supplement the way that you're doing your consulting, but typically they're two different styles. Does that make sense?
It does. And I have seen that the high level people that you talk about, that's why they want to work with me. So they don't have to worry about any of that. So yes, you are exactly right that it's two different people.
Yeah. And so when we start noticing that, technically that could be two separate businesses, two different avatars. I mean, it's not, but you know what I mean. Does that make sense? And so don't get me wrong. I think having the Podcast Magic is really important. And we're going to talk about that in a second, just like I said. But when I look at you as an agency type model, which is what you are for these CEOs, right? I want consistent, predictable revenue from an agency model where you're not doing a lot of the work. Then we can add on the courses on top of that, and set up evergreen funnels and do all that other fun stuff, or launches or whatever we want on that side, as a supplement. I love knowing that whatever the business expenses are, the agency is self-sustaining. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So when we start going, ooh, I want to grow, that's great. I only want to grow in a very sustainable way and not crazy lot. Like if you went right now and went, I'm going to not focus on the agency quote unquote stuff, and I'm just going to go and launch courses, then you might be back in the up and down, right? What I would prefer is you just set up more of a prospecting and sale, actually taking the time that you now have to set up more of a prospecting and sales cycle for those high level clients, and set up more of a recurring type thing if possible. That way we've got that consistent revenue. So your team is solid. While you're doing the courses, they're going to help you do the course too. You have to pay them in order to do the course, right? Does that make sense? So when we start going on prospecting and sales, you told me beforehand that referrals, huge for you, right? Going to conferences, huge for you. Does that typical avatar buy something that could be recurring, or is it because one-offs is tough? You have to keep selling and keep selling and keep selling. But typically it sounds like you have some recurring type customers. So what is that?
Yeah, I do have recurring customers. I have people I've worked with for years, and it's a wonderful relationship for both of us. And it's really easy on me because, so you mentioned in that 1 week, I spent about an hour and a half roughly on sales. It's because, so at the moment, I don't need to do so much of that because I have the same people that I've worked with for a long time.
So imagine if we doubled that though.
Yes, that would be difficult time-wise.
Well, so it would. So if we actually got the 10 to 20 hours off your plate, it wouldn't be difficult to double.
Exactly.
And if we doubled, then you'd be doubling your revenue, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what is the average per month price point of one of those clients right now?
Part of it depends on what we're doing together, but it could range anywhere from, $1,500, $2,500. It just depends on what we're doing. And there's likely some room for more beyond that, but that's what it's been so far.
Well, and that's what I want to do is go, what is the core that we're actually focusing on? Yes, there's always going to be outliers, both on top and on bottom, right? You're going to go, hey, this is my signature kind of thing, right? Some people are going to want white glove service, which is sort of that higher level package. Some people are going to want something lower, potentially that course. If they're like, oh, you're too expensive, I'm doing it on my own, right? You can downsell them. But as long as we know what we're shooting for and the actions that need to happen in order to get more of those, does that make sense? Then we can actually do the actions, which will get you the result. And even if it sort of filters out and we have people buying Podcast Magic instead, that's totally fine too. You know the line that you're going after. because that sets up how many conferences you're actually going to or how many referrals you're asking for or whatever the systems are that we're actually working on. Does that make sense? So yes, right now, sales are low. The amount of time for sales are low. I still want to keep the amount of time for sales low. I just want your revenue to go a lot more, right? Like if you keep your customers, that's amazing. One of the reasons why I don't want you to be doing one-off stuff is because you have to keep doing sales.
Yeah.
I would much rather have you have long-term recurring. So how many long-term recurring clients do you have right now?
Oh gosh, probably 5.
Awesome. Can we upsell any of them? Of course, if they're listening to this, you're like, really? No. in a wonderful way. In a wonderful, like, can we help them more?
Yeah, they're gonna say, "Hey, I heard you on Jamie's show.
Right?
I know what you're doing." Yeah, there could be situations in those relationships where they haven't even thought to ask
right? They don't even
something
know.
else they need. Yeah.
Yes, you have way more knowledge, and sometimes we as service providers think that everybody knows what we have to offer. Heck no, not even a little bit. Just so you know. Okay? Valid point. So if we can upsell them, that's sort of one way to not even have to really increase overhead or anything like that, just do a little bit more and help them even better. There'll be even better testimonials and better referrals because of that too. I mean, don't sell them something that they don't want. That's a used car salesman-ish, but sell them something that would really help them, if so. Okay, so that's number one. That's an action item also. Current clients. So do you have, especially on all those one-offs, I want you to make a prospecting list of those one-off previous clients and just check in with them and see if they want the recurring stuff too. How many do you think you have? Do you have a list of at least 10, 20, 30, something like that?
Of one-offs? Yeah, I'm sure I do.
At least. You've been doing this a long time.
Yeah, I don't have the list sitting around. It's not something I've put together, but I'm sure if I go through, I can.
This is why I make you do it. So, because I've seen this with clients before where we make a list that people already love you. They don't even realize that you had recurring because when I asked you what your prices and products were, you're like, well, it's a blah, 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 right? So what we want to do is we want to check in and see if their podcast is still going, see if you can actually help them, hop on a sales call with them, even if it's just a check-in chat call, and then you can actually probe pain points. I know you're not like a hardcore kind of sales kind of guy, but even if you're hopping on the phone with them to just chat again and then be like, oh, we could actually help you a lot more. Do you want to have a sales conversation later? Mm-hmm. That's totally fine too. But what we're trying to do is go, hey, they already love you, most likely, because you deliver excellence. That's one of your values, right? So being able to have that and then potentially getting 2 or 3 more recurring revenue, that's amazing, right? Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah.
And that shouldn't be too many more hours on your time at that point either if you have most of it that's already delegated. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So this is the low-hanging fruit. This is going, what are the assets that we already have? And we haven't even talked about Podcast Magic and that course yet, but what we're trying to do is go, we already have a lot of assets here. How can we rejigger them so that way it's making you more money, less stress, and more time? Make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you have any questions so far on this?
No, not yet.
Excited?
Oh yeah, this has been good.
Excited. It's way easier than people think too. It's like, make a gosh darn list of your previous clients and email them. We're not talking about rocket science here, people. But we don't do that. We don't normally go, hey, you know what I should do today, right? So we're going to do that with the goal, because when you told me that your goal is $250 and we go, let's just pretend it's $2,000 for recurring. You get 10 more clients, you have $240,000 a year. 10 clients. Bing.
You make it sound so simple.
Right? Simple, not easy. Because easy comes when you're sending those emails going, oh crap, I feel crappy asking. All that stuff comes up later. And that's why we do coaching, of course. But it is. I mean, when you look at your numbers, you don't even have to sell Podcasting Magic and you can hit that. Mm-hmm. And you can over deliver for your clients because I know you will. Does that make sense?
Yes.
And that's what we're looking for. We're trying to make this simple because too many people overcomplicate their business models. They're like, I have 7 things, even when I was asking you, and I kind of do audio stuff for here, and I kind of go over here, and I kind of do this, and I kind of do that. That's why you're not making as much as you can because we're dabbling in a lot of different things and have hobbies that we're counting as work. No offense. Love you. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Okay. So let's actually move on to the Podcasting Magic because what I personally think you can make $250 on your own with just the agency model. and do the fun stuff that you love, right? Like it's technically second in command, but you're still the face of your company doing a lot more of the work that you actually really enjoy. Leveling up your strengths, huge. Podcast editing in your basement by yourself, not as fun, right? Not in your basement, but you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So podcast magic does sound really cool, but what I want you to do is do those pieces first. So phase 1, getting more of your time back. Phase 2, getting more of the foundational prospecting sales pieces. And we can give you resources. We have OwnerBox systems that we can help with Chelsea. So that way, especially if Chelsea hasn't really done a lot of this stuff before, stealing sort of somebody else's systems will make it a lot easier, right? Mm-hmm. So you don't have to reinvent the wheel the second time. So that's sort of the prospecting and sales piece. Foundational piece needs to happen, and getting a couple more clients sort of is phase 2. Okay. Phase 3 is where you actually get to talk about all your proprietary, amazing, awesome stuff, right? And that's what I know you want to lean into anyway. I still think you can hit your goal, your monetary goal sooner without even having to do that, by the way. But I know this is where you want to be long-term. And that's why if you want to book and all that fun stuff, we really need to focus on that sort of as phase 3. Does that make sense so far?
Yes.
Perfect. Okay. So podcasting magic, questions that might be a little hardcore. So you're creating it and you haven't sold it yet. Do you know that the market is there?
All right. So here's how this came about.
Okay.
Is I was getting people that wanted to work with me to launch a podcast, but didn't want to pay my price. So this was last year because I was a little out of their price range. And I thought, you know what, I will just get a group of people together. So I reached out to people and I said, I want to try this group coaching program. I called it Podcast Launcher. And I had a group go through it and it went really well. They gave me feedback. We did 4 sessions and a question and answer. And then I took another group through it and it went really well.
Okay, perfect.
And then I took all of that and used it to create podcast magic.
So you listen to what people say and running it and testing it. Yay. Okay. Yes. Great job.
And now podcast magic, I have like 4 lessons left. I mean, it's really close. Great. But what I did is then I reached out to another group of people and I said, I've created this course. I'll give you a great discount on it if you will go through it, and I'll give you coaching calls, group coaching calls. If you give me feedback on I'm not going to record any more if there's something you don't like in a video, tough, it's staying. But if there's anything on the side that would help, a checklist, something to download. And so they're giving me that feedback. So okay. I've basically sold this 3 times and it's done well every time.
Yes. So people already love it. You already have testimonials. This is awesome. So what is your current plan? Because I know you already have the lead magnet and you have pieces of what that funnel is. And you probably already have ideas and goals and plans on when we're launching this. So tell me a little bit more about that.
So there's maybe 4 lessons left that I haven't recorded, maybe more based on feedback I get that people in there. Yep. So let's just say there's 6 lessons left to record. Okay. And then it's done. Chelsea's going through and cleaning up some stuff and adding the text in the lessons. I'm using Kajabi and she's taking care of some of the stuff in there. I've wised up. I'm not even writing my own sales copy. I have someone else doing that. And then it'll be ready to go, which should be sometime in March, or because of travel, maybe I'll delay launching it a little bit. But I mean, we're that close where I could get it out within 2 to 4 weeks.
Yay. So is it just digital only, or are you running it in a group format launch style also?
I could go either way. I was considering especially on this first launch of it, to do both, where if you just want the content, here you go. But if you want a little more attention, we can do a group thing and the price will be higher. But perfect. There's so many people I can take through a group coaching portion and then offer that in both ways.
I love it. And you already had a pretty big list for it too, didn't you?
Yeah, it's decent list. Yeah,
I think it's decent. I don't know if you're willing to share, but I was like, oh, that's amazing. So so that I love that plan. It sounds perfect. You already have all the stuff. what I might do if I were you is sort of not necessarily hold back, but try and do the marketing in a way that it can be more evergreen or on repeat for later. Does that make sense? And so really
Yeah.
go a little bit more all in. I know what we have a tendency to do, and I don't know you all that well, but we have a tendency to dabble, especially when we've done betas. We sort of are like, hey, here's the thing. Hey, let's do this. Hey, let's do this. And I really want you to commit 110% when you actually launch this. Because the difference that I've seen, one of my clients, his name was Joey. He's amazing. He started with a course. He sold out the course. It was really, really great. And I went, what if we doubled the amount of people that could go through the course? So at the time, he actually had trainers and stuff like that. And he was like, okay, well, we have 100 people. And I go, well, what if we had 200 people? And he was like, right? Because that's scary.
Yeah.
Right? Super scary. Way easy for me as a coach to say, oh, just double it. Super easy, right? That being said, it makes your brain think a little bit differently, right? So how many people did you have during the first 2 betas?
I think the first one was maybe 7. The second one was 6.
Great.
And those were when it was just group coaching and I did everything live. Now that I have it in the course format, I have 12 people currently going through it.
Okay. And how much is it?
Oh, it's the beta version has been 500.
Awesome. Okay. So this is what I would do if I were you in terms of timelines, though, because we have a tendency to underestimate how much the marketing will take in time and effort and energy. And if I just gave you a whole bunch of other action items, I would actually not try and get this thing up as fast as humanly possible. When do you think, so for that specific avatar, right? When do you think in terms of the year goes that they would be more open to it? And maybe you want to explain to me the type of avatar that's in the group already, which might be able to help. But when do you think, as far as what month might be best?
I can't say I've considered that. So I'll give you an answer just because, but I don't know, maybe later in the spring is better. I think I may have missed a pretty good window because I think right at the beginning of the year, people are like, I've always meant to start a podcast. This is the year to do it. So I have missed that window. I realize that happens. So I don't know, maybe if it's closer to mid-year and then I can say, look, it's not too late. You still have half the year left to get this done.
Late. So who's the avatar then? Are they people that already have jobs and are looking to start something, or tell me more about them?
So I've seen both types go through this. There's people that have a job but want to build something on the side and use the expertise they have from their job to build their own brand while they're doing this.
Great.
I have people that want to leave their job and they're starting ahead building their job. Their side gig. And then there's people that are already doing their thing. They're a coach, a consultant, or something along those lines. And they've been meaning to start a podcast to help build what they're doing. And now, so those are the 3 areas or groups that are in this course. But also in both of the group coaching, when it was Podcast Launcher and now the beta of Podcast Magic, it's everybody that I had some connection to them anyway. So it's never really been offered to people that don't have a connection to me. It's never been put out in the world and then see who shows up.
Well, and that's why I want you to go a little bit more on the marketing, because we have a tendency to go, oh, it's so easy to sell the beta because everybody kind of knows you and trusts you and likes you. Whenever I've sold anything, I don't even have to tell them totally what it is. They're like, here's the money, Jamie, because I guarantee it all, right? Like if you're not happy, I'll give you your money back. That being said, when you actually go to scale it, it's like, oh, I have to get way better at explaining what the heck this thing is, right? And what the benefits and the results are. So you're a copywriter already, so I don't need to talk about this too much, but I want you to go a little bit more all in on the marketing. Because what I've seen happen is people do some betas and then they go, oh, I'm going to send it to my list. And they go, one email, ta-da, or whatever, right? And they're like, nobody wanted it, right? And so therefore, I just want you to go a little bit more all in on what that is, because it's going to be you going, hey, I have this thing. These are the benefits. And you might have to touch them a little bit more than you did for selling the beta. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So when I hear who your avatar is, I go, tax money coming in, especially for people that actually have jobs. So I would
Uh-huh.
start to think about doing it beginning of April or mid-April just for that. So that way it's way easier to buy something when you have cash,
Yes, it
right?
is. Yeah.
Way easier to make snap decisions when you have cash. Now, most of these people, like you said, have been thinking about it for a while, but timing does make a difference. Your business, not as much as other businesses, but we really want to focus on that, especially because when we're looking at March for you, and I don't know when this is going to air, but March for you to me would be the delegation side, leveling Chelsea up, and getting a handful more of those recurring clients. Does that make
Mhm.
sense? Then in the background, you're really going over the marketing and sales plan for an April launch, which gives you way more time. I usually
Yeah.
tell my clients to double the amount of time they think it's going to take in order to do a launch because, oh my gosh, launches are crazy. Have you run a whole launch before too?
Yeah, one of the guys I've partnered with, we've done a couple of courses. One that involved a launch is a bit different than this one, but we've
Oh, you
we've
get
done
it.
that one.
Perfect.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it
So
is
you know how
crazy.
crazy. Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
I have clients that are mid-launch. I'm like, text me when you're doing it because right? Whether you sell too much and you're like, oh crap, or you don't sell enough and you're like, oh crap. There's lots of fun things that you know when you're mid-launch. So just pre-plan enough and enough resources, especially with your team. So I wouldn't go crazy and selling a whole bunch of people and then being like, oh, Chelsea, by the way, we're launching this thing too. And Chelsea's like, right. We want to give them enough time in between. So if we do March, where's the foundational side of things, and I'll give you all these action items too. We're going to list them all out for you. So it's all written. And then really April, hone in on that. Then we have the recurring revenue that's coming in, right? Then we have the actual launch that actually gets you a bunch more cash that's scalable. And I have no doubt that you can hit 250 this year. Does that make sense?
It does, and you've got me believing it too.
Kind of the most important part of all of this, right? Because if you don't actually believe the plan, we ain't gonna do it. And that's why I want, like, if you have any questions as you're going through, I know you're technically not a client, please ask me, because I would much rather have you actually have success and come back later, right? Than just be like, Jamie was great on the call, but now I don't care and I don't believe it, right? So as we're
Yeah.
going through, things will come up because they just will. Like as we're going through, you're going to be like, oh no, what do I do in this situation? Feel free to just shoot me an email. That way I can make sure. Because most of the time it's very small tweaks or
Mhm.
changes that make a huge difference in what you need to do.
Well, Jamie, that will be our follow-up episode someday where I come back and say, you wouldn't believe what happened after I talked with Jamie.
What I'm looking for every single time. And that's the reason why we do these too, because you don't know what you don't know. And we overcomplicate. I do too. This is why I have coach. I overcomplicate the crap out of what this actually is. But when you actually start pulling apart the pieces and asking for help a lot more and leveling yourself up to be the leader that you know you are, but sometimes you just have too much on your shoulders and you can't feel like you can stand up taller. That's what we're looking to do. So in 2 or 3 months, you're going to be able to take that big deep breath that not only you're going to hit the revenues that you want to hit and you're on track for it, because that feels amazing. But like I said, your wife is going to go, and I actually see you more, and you're not stressed because you don't feel like you're always behind. You're never going to finish your to-do list. But if you feel like you're on track to the goals that you're setting, that's what feels really good.
Yeah. Yeah. And I do realize, talking with you, doing these exercises, I'm not real good at asking for help. And part of it, maybe it's just me, maybe it's, former park ranger. Park rangers do everything. And I think I still try to do that, even though I'm not wearing the uniform.
Well, and what's so funny, I love that you're a park ranger because you can talk about you're a loner, right? You're in the middle of the woods mostly by yourself helping people. That's all you really do. I'm assuming. I don't totally know the job all that well, but that's how it feels as an entrepreneur. Every single one of the entrepreneurs I talk to feel alone, and yet we have online everywhere where you could ask for help. But unfortunately, we have this chip on our shoulder. I don't know. I can do it myself. I've got that too. I do myself. I joke around all the time. I do myself. And they're like, you could just ask them. I do myself. Right? Like a little two-year-old.
Yeah.
And yet opening it up and actually will give you the freedom, and we don't feel like it will, but it will give you the freedom to actually be able to do and support way more people. We need more people like you in the world that are not just trying to sell some stupid course that nobody's ever going to use, because you actually get to help them in the right way. You actually know what the heck you're talking about. We need leaders like you that actually are willing to share and have that level of excellence that really matter. Right? This is a whole new changing industry that we're in, which is super exciting and fun. And I want you to help the people, not the crazy internet marketers that are selling crap. I mean, no offense to them. They're doing their own thing, but I want you to help them. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And you have to be able to ask for help. You have to be able to lead in the way that we know we need to lead. All that stuff that you already knew you were supposed to do, but didn't do, that's the stuff we need in order for you to actually become and be the business that we know the world needs. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So we're wrapping up. I'm going to send you all of your action items. Feel free to email me if you have any questions on any of the action items. Leilani will also connect with Chelsea if you want to connect with her, so we can give her some of the OwnerBox pieces for the processes, especially on the onboarding new people and all that fun stuff. Don't worry. We'll email it all to you. I know you're trying to take notes right now.
I will.
Don't worry. We got this for you. Do you have any questions at all before we wrap up?
Well, I will make a comment before we started. I said, Jamie, you're the best. And I said it beforehand because I wasn't sure how it would feel by now, but I still think you're the best.
Woo! I didn't slap you too hard. Perfect. I love it. Well, and of course, we would love to have you back on the show to sort of talk about how you fared with all the stuff once you get into the nitty gritty. But of course, reach out for help, because I am here. Okay. And I'm telling you, and it's funny because in the follow-up, if you go, you didn't actually ask me for any help, I'll slap you then too. Okay. Everybody, make sure you check out jodymayberry.com. We'll link it all up. If anybody needs podcast magic, make sure you sign up for the lead magnet, and we'll make sure to link up that too. Thank you so much for being so open and available and encouraging to be able to change your business. I so appreciate people like you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Jamie.
I hope you enjoyed that coaching session. And if you want to be on the show, if you have a 6-figure business or above, I would love to have you on. Go to eventualmillionaire.com/laser. Fill out a really quick application form, and we will let you know if you can get into